Hello everybody, and today I'm going to be showing you one of the most broken builds that has ever stepped foot into Diablo 4, at least into the live server. And today, that is brought to you by Voids here. And I want to make this abundantly clear, I did not make this build, this is not my gameplay, this is all from Voids here, over here on YouTube. I highly recommend, if you enjoyed this build, you like it, go check him out on YouTube, go give him a like and subscribe on the original video, just like I will here now. And then he has kindly provided the build link, which we are going to take a look at here in a second, to show you how this build works. And let's just get into it to see how absolutely broken this build is. So when we start here, we're on pit level 165, which to my knowledge is the current highest pit level I think ever achieved on the live server. And it's just absolutely wild. Of course, we here on a Fireball Sorc, and let's start dissecting a little bit of what this looks like. So we see he's teleporting around. We're going to show you how that works. He's grouping everything up, and then he's freezing everything. And then it looks like he's doing fire damage, and he is doing fire damage, but he's not really doing that much fire damage. And this time, there are actual damage numbers on, which I do appreciate. He's made a couple of these videos without damage numbers, and I think the damage numbers just really show how good this build is. And something to keep in mind here, I know if you've never gone super high level in the pit, it looks like it's taking a long time to kill these monsters, but just keep something in mind. At level 165 on the pit, these trash monsters have trillions of health. Yes, trillions. And so it's just absolutely mind-boggling how much damage this build is doing. As you can see here, these white numbers, it hits for millions, billions, billions, and then it'll explode and do trillions, and that's when everything dies. And they're focusing on one specific thing to do that. And I'll show you here real quick what that is before we go back to the video. We're building around Shatter. So how this works is you freeze an enemy, and the entire time that they're frozen, you do damage them and you build up and you build up, you build up, and then when enemies explode, they do a ton of damage all at once. And so we're basically dipping into Shatter a bunch of different ways. Now, one thing to keep in mind, say you want to build this build at home, go for it, absolutely. I'll show you everything you need to do it. But there's a very high likelihood that this build could get either nerfed or completely become unviable with a patch. Now, they've already changed this build once with Shatter here recently. We had a slight nerf. They made it so it couldn't double dip or really quadruple dip into as much things as it once could, and they nerfed it a little bit, but they ended up actually buffing Shatter a little bit to keep up with that damage. So it's not dead yet, but keep that in mind. You might spend a ton of time getting everything ready for this build, and then Blizzard could just completely destroy. So keep that in mind. Build at your own risk, but if you want to push the pit, this is the build to do it. All right, let's continue going through this video. You can actually he's just demolishing these packs. And it's really smart doing how he built this to be able to group everything up. So you freeze everything using your spectral blades, and then it all just dies in a super big explosion. This reminds me a lot of the Butcher Heart that we had a while ago, a couple seasons ago. Very, very similar kind of huge explosion of damage, this building stacking. And it's just incredibly, incredibly strong. And see, we're just making absolutely super quick work of this 165 pit run, which is just absolutely insane. And the boss is going to take a long while, because bosses at this level just have stupid amounts of health. Like, if you think Uber Lilith has a lot of health, you have no idea. I mean, just look at the damage numbers we're doing here. You can see millions, billions. We're probably going to see a big trillion hit here in a second. Yep, there was just a big trillion hit from one of those big explosions, and we did a chunk of the health, but we just did trillions of damage, and we took a tiny little chunk of this health. I don't know quite how much health these bosses have, but I would not be surprised if it was close to almost a zillion. And here this boss is going to die, which is just absolutely incredible how much damage is done. And also being able to avoid all these mechanics for almost an 8-minute fight on the boss is just absolutely insane. Now, next we are going to go through and dive into what makes this build work so you guys can do it at home. So with that, let's jump into this build. Now, here we are on Max Rolls Diablo 4 player. Now, keep in mind, I did not create this. No credit to me, all credit to Voidseer. He did all of this. All of his stuff is going to be linked in the comments and description down below, so please go show him some love. Absolutely incredible. So let's go through here. Let's just start off with some of our gear. So we have Harlequin's Quest, kind of a staple for high pit pushes. Remnant of the Infinite. So let's take a look at this. So we have Glass Cannon, which is nice. It's just extra damage, a little bit less survivability, but at these levels, you pretty much can't die. And here's the big thing. After using Teleport, close enemies are pulled into you and stunned for 3 seconds, but Teleport's cooldown is increased by 20 seconds. So when you saw them, their characters teleporting all around the map. And every time they teleport, people get pulled into it. And there's a few things working there. The main thing is this infinite here. This is responsible for pulling all together and stunning them. Basically, double dipping, doing crazy, crazy damage and then exploding. Teleport is super, super important, especially being able to pull them together so that when you freeze them and they blow up, they're all hurting each other. All right, let's dive into the second part of this build, which is being able to teleport all the time. Now, this is super important for a couple of reasons. Being able to group things up easily, but also you have a time limit on these pit runs. So you need to be able to move through the map relatively quickly, and being able to teleport is super nice. You can dodge out of things, you can move around, reposition, group up more enemies, super, super helpful. Speed running and just survivability in general. And so let's talk about how that's happening here. So first we can see we use the teleport enchantment, and evade is replaced with a short cooldown that is now a teleport. So it does not make you unstoppable, but you still do teleport, but it just kind of increases your evade cooldown a little bit. So what happens here is, so we now when we teleport, we pull enemies in. Teleport's a little bit longer, but that's fine because now we use evade to teleport. And since we're using evade to teleport, we can use a bunch of stuff basically to reduce our evade cooldown, which means we can basically just zip around the map. I think in the video, it has around a 3-second timer to teleport, which is just absolutely insane. Basically, by the time the animation finishes of the teleport, you can teleport again. Super, super crazy, super, super fast. Really, really impressive. Next, we have Flame Weaver, which is kind of interesting, and I did not expect this when first diving into this build, which basically casting Firebolt through Firewall causes it to split into 3 bolts, dealing 100% increased damage. Now, this is interesting because Firebolt and Firewall, as you can see, we use all of these, and Firewall is used a lot, and we're really, really buffing our Firebolt here. So we can see rank 30 out of 5, which is just absolutely insane. And so how is this build really working? So we're doing a ton, and I mean an absolutely massive amount of fire damage until this procs and does just absolutely insane amounts of damage. So to put this in perspective, we're doing millions and billions of damage here. When this pops and it blows up, that's the trillions. So that's how this works. You're still going to be doing crazy amounts of damage with just this normal set right up here. And then when you actually pop Shatter, it just does insane amounts of damage. Now, as we go into the legs, this is just something to make you a little bit more survivable. Ice Armor makes you unstoppable and grants damage reduction. Super, super common on sorcerers. Almost everyone uses it. And then you have after casting 5 basic skills. Then here on the feet, we have after casting 5 basic skills. One of your cooldowns is reduced by 2.5 seconds, which is super helpful. All right, next we have another thing here, and we have the Shard of Verathiel, which basically means basic skills deal 200% damage, perfect roll, but cost 25% more resource. And this is just absolutely buffing our Firebolt to insane levels and just making it do so much damage that no one even thought would be possible. So next here on the amulet, we have Storm Swell. You deal 45% increased damage to vulnerable enemies while you have a barrier. And we'll always have a barrier. Using Ice Armor is up 24/7 in this build, and with most Sorcerer builds, you always have Ice Armor active. Then we have our second Mythic Unique, which of course is the Ring of Starless Skies. Spending your primary resource reduces your resource cost, and then increasing your damage all the way to 50%. Crazy strong Mythic Unique, making it so we basically have infinite resource, and we do a crazy amount of bonus damage. Now, here we have Tal Rashala's Loop. For each type of elemental damage you deal, you gain 20% increased damage for 4 seconds, up to 80%. Dealing elemental damage refreshes all of these bonuses. So let's take a look here at this. So we're dipping into all the different types of elemental damage, basically having constantly 80% multiplicative damage. Now next we have the Serpent Stone of the Moonrise. Damaging enemies with a basic skill grants you 4% attack speed, stacking up to 5 times. Upon reaching the maximum stacks, you go into Vampiric Blood Rage, gaining 80% basic skill damage and a movement speed. So why is this really important? Because of Firebolt. Basic skill, we're doing even more percent into that basic skill, and this is just absolutely insane. Now let's take a quick second and go through the skill tree. Now, as you can see, obviously, Firebolt, we're going all the way to Glinting, which increases the burning damage. We are putting points into Fireball that we're going to be casting on the ground as well. And of course, we do have the Fireball enchantment, which makes it so that Fireballs deal 10% of the burning damage you've applied to enemies as additional direct damage. So this is another way we can buff our damage because, we're doing burning damage here, we're doing burning damage here. So what's going to happen is 10% of that damage is going to be done as direct damage, which is buffed significantly with this build, which makes Fireball super, super important. And what you'll see happening is you want to apply the Fireball after you've been at that pack for a little bit so that burning damage can keep stacking and getting crazy high. And then once that burning damage is super high, then we cast the Fireball. to direct damage, which then helps proc shatter later on. As you can see, we have points into teleport, and we do take shimmering teleport just to help, survivability. We take ice armor down into mystical. Of course, we are using ice blades. This is how we're going to be freezing enemies consistently and summoned ice blades. So 20% of enhanced ice blades cooldown restriction is applied to your other skills. So basically just making everything pop sooner. And we're going to be taking a ton, and I mean a ton of passives to buff everything here. Of course, we are taking Firewall, super important with one of the things we're doing to buff Firebolt and also apply a little bit extra burning damage as well. We are going to be taking a lot of the fire passives just to help for survivability and everything, and a few of the ice passives as well. Now, again, I'd highly recommend if you're going through this build, find this planner. It'll be linked in the description below. Thanks to Voidseer, and everything will be here. You can go through it. You don't have to watch this video a million times. And of course, the most important thing is Shatter. Absolutely insane how strong Shatter is. And I will warn you, there's about a very, very, very high possibility that Shatter will be getting nerfed, or at least changed so you can't double, triple, and even quadruple dip into it like we currently are. So starting out with board 1, obviously we're going to be using Exploit, into Enchantment Master with Elementalist, into Frigid Fate with Control, and into Burning Instinct with Tactician, Ceaseless Conduit with Destruction, Icefall with Torch, and Static Surge with Enchanter. Yeah, I can zoom out so you can kind of see the board structure and how it's laid out. Obviously, we're not going to be taking all of the legendary nodes, just a few of them, and mainly focusing on our glyphs, which was something that will be changing in Season 6. But for now, this is what we're focusing on. Now, we're not going to go through every single node. It would take far too much time. So if you do want to see this, like, you can go down the description and go here and follow it yourself. So that is everything we have to cover today. Thank you everybody for watching. This build is absolutely insane. I cannot give enough thanks to Voidseer for sharing this with us so I can share it to all of you. Now, thank you everybody. Please go like and subscribe on Voidseer's channel for all the work that they're doing. I'm sure they're going to keep pushing this build, and hopefully we'll even get to 160. Who knows? We still have some time left in Season 5. So thank you everybody. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in a future video. Peace out. See you next time.